everyone. Welcome to episode 130 of Formidable Opponents, a show that pits three people who have known each other virtually their entire lives in a series of conversations as we argue what is best in a variety of fun, engaging, and critical pop culture topics we all debate about. I'm Randall, and with me as always, Bob and Joseph, and this week's topic is Best 70s Guitar Solo. That's right. We're cranking the amps up to 11. We're discussing the golden age of the guitar solo where somehow we were able to extract 12 minutes of guitar playing from a 3-minute song. In the 70s, rock stars were gods, guitar solos were life, and we witnessed the rise of the guitar legends whose fame rose to such a degree they were recognized by one name. Guys like Page, Clapton, Van Halen, Gilmour, Santana. These guitarists, along with their contemporaries, pushed the boundaries of what a guitar could do. The guitar solo itself not only became the centerpiece of the song, but it also defined it by showcasing technical mastery, speed, emotion, and creativity. By the way, these were all done organically. There were absolutely no mind-altering substances that influenced their skill level. Yes, they were as natural as an MLB home run champ in the late 90s. We recognize the 70s solo as the emotional climax of the song. Its purpose was to express feelings that words just could not express. The silence of the lead singer's voice transitioned to a smooth takeover, and that solo gave you a moment to really think about how impactful and profound the song was to you. For that moment, your mind conducted the lyrics and the thought, for the solo not only was part of the song, but it also extended the song's identity, its ethos, and what it individually means to you. This week, we celebrate those masterpieces within masterpieces. This week, Formidable Opponents debate and discuss Best 70s Guitar Solo. With me, as always, are two guys who will crank up these songs, go on full uncle mode this holiday season in front of their families, and embarrassingly and drunkenly shout, "Now this is music." Bob and Joseph, I have to start off by asking you, is this freedom rock?
Well, turn it up, man. Yeah, man.
The worst
I have no idea
I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
Sorry.
terrible, just terrible.
By the way, one of the greatest commercials of all time, a 70s rock CD with absolutely no rock and roll songs in it. So.
It was freedom rock.
It's freedom rock.
So what's going on, guys? How have you all been since our last episode?
Good. Still full from Thanksgiving. Yes,
Absolutely.
but had plenty of whiskey and 70s rock to like calm me down, but I'm still pretty full from Thanksgiving.
How about you, Joseph?
Good. Thank you. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, all of our listeners. Hopefully not a lot of shouting and actually just enjoying.
Shout, let it all out, Joseph.
Each other's company. And if you're, hey, it's been a really good weekend as far as like sports wise for us.
Yes.
Clean sweep. All four
Clean
teams,
sweep,
at least for
baby.
me.
Tech, Cowboys, Texans. The Longhorns beat A&M. Suck it, little brother. Wait, just cut that part out. Just kidding.
One of the biggest, most timeless eras of rock music. Now, Bob, you're our 70s rock guy.
I am?
Yes. You've been christened for this episode. So you suggested this episode. Tell us why the 70s rock. We've talked about this many, many times, but in particular, the guitar solo. What did it mean to you?
You all know I've talked about 70s rock a ton on this show. It's my favorite decade of rock music, close 60s and 90s. But the 70s, man, I think the 70s were the decade for guitarists and solos and all these different subgenres of rock music, the psychedelic, and then you have, they brought in all the pedals, all the different sounds, all these different great sounds and genres of music of rock music that I just like haven't gotten over since I was a kid. So I've been kind of like poking the bear a little bit, wanting to do guitar solos, and I kind of wanted to start with this decade because this was a decade of great solos. I know 80s you have a few, 60s definitely has some, but I thought the 70s is like that sweet spot of great songs and great guitarists and great guitar solos.
Joseph, I've mentioned Bob being our big 70s rock fan. I'm going to cross that bridge and say you're our biggest satanic music fan. And that's where satanic music kind of started. No, but in the 70s, you had
It's
a lot
metal,
of
sir. It's metal. Satanus, that's Latin for Satan.
So in the 70s, you saw the uprise of a more darker rock
Yes.
culture. Tell us a little bit how the guitar solo sort of played into that.
Well, when we give our opinions on this topic, we're kids of the 80s who grew up listening to our parents' music,
Yes.
which happened to be 60s and 70s. So we learned about this stuff early on. I don't look at the 60s. This isn't a knock on 60s rock, but I don't think they were at the point to these new things like Bob mentioned, new technology, if you can call it technology of the 70s,
Yeah,
the pedals,
exactly.
the effects and things like that. I think this stuff was getting more introduced to the 70s musicians, and they were able to take advantage of that. And there's great solos in 60s music. These guys got to experiment with some cool shit, some new sounds, some new tones, and it's not all 70s rock music, but like, there's some of my favorite songs, some of my favorite bands, particularly like a Black Sabbath. They were experimenting with these Tommy Iommi, bringing these like evil sounding
Dark, ominous tones.
yeah, to their
Yes.
guitars and just rolling with that and running with it and taking it to new levels, and which gave us great songs, and actually gave us trouble, a little bit of trouble picking a
Yeah.
particular part. There was a lot of stuff to pick from that we, when we went back and looked at it, and of course we just love listening to this music, so it's always fun to go back and check those out.
And all jokes about the satanic music. We're in December. Christmas is around the corner. We don't want to offend anybody. Joseph is very much into
Like Jack Black just seemed to do
What did he do?
with his new movie. I was like, people are offended. It's Jack Black making a stupid movie. Who gives a shit?
We'll have to get back to that because I do not know this. But first off,
Yes,
Bob
they
and
said
Joseph-
Christmas. We didn't say Xmas. Okay, calm down, people, all right? We said Christmas.
Keep the ancient holidays.
Two-part question, Bob and Joseph. In the 1970s, the
Tell
undisputed
Krampus.
is the 1970s the undisputed decade of or the undisputed king of rock solos? I mean, I'm sorry, of rock guitar solos. If so, make the case that it wasn't just because of the drugs. Why does everybody see the 1970s as the rock solo decade? I'm sorry, the guitar solo decade.
I don't think it's the undisputed king. I know that like there's some great
That's Corey
musicians.
Feldman. That's Corey Feldman.
There's some great musicians, great guitar players, all the way into the 80s and 90s. Currently, right now, there's some great musicians that play the guitar like madmen. I think. So I won't call it the undisputed king, but I think to answer your question, it's kind of like what I just mentioned. It was the start of something new. It was different, and everybody that came after that only took what these guys were doing in the 70s. These individuals, these bands, these guitar players, and taking it. So I think, deserves its credit for pioneering, sounds and tones and things like that many artists used, in the later decades and to this day. But undisputed king, no, because
Wow.
man, we know some great guitar players in the 90s. We know some great guitar players in the 80s. And I can't wait to get to those decades as well and talk about those, particular songs or those, the ones when we get to that point.
Bob, do you agree with that point?
I kind of do, and I kind of don't. I would say it is the best decade of all. But I know you don't want to talk about drugs, but drug culture and culture in general in the 70s was completely different from the 60s and the 80s, even way more so than the 90s. So I think people had more time on their hands, had more time to be creative, to travel, to sit, to listen to an album from in its entirety in one sitting, because that's what you did. That's, you had this time on your hands. Like, they weren't all so caught up in the party life and the go life, like let's say the 80s, or met the slums and the downer kind of 90s and grunge rock, or like now the 2000s where everybody's on their goddamn phone. You had this time on your hands and these people would sit and enjoy concerts and enjoy music. Sure, drugs might have been a big part of that culture, but it wasn't like to do drugs and to party and to go all out and be crazy. It was to relax and be calm and jam out. And I think that their music is a great reflection of that. I love the fact that these guitarists, these artists were able to go off on a little tangent, so to speak, in their song and create this solo that is a little piece of them in that song, their creative thoughts and energy, and it completely changed a lot of the songs in great ways. It made these songs iconic, not just because of the lyrics or the opening riff or the chorus, but because this solo somewhere in that song really changed the dynamic of the entire song.
Great points, guys. And I will say this, multi-track recordings helped out a lot. Solos were no longer a technical element of a song. They evolved into an emotional expression. I think the 70s crafted and created the guitar solo as a relentless discipline, and it wasn't seen as a break from the lyrics, but an extension to the song's meaning. And I wanna sort of talk about a point that both of you sort of crossed there, the attention span. Now, I know both of you are album collectors, so you listen to track after track. In the 90s, we had like these kiosks like at the Barnes and Noble where we could listen to 30 seconds of a song. Now we have we have iPhones where we could fast forward the song easily. But in the 70s, it was a testament to an album when the first track was as good as the last track and everybody listened to it. So does the zeitgeist of the way we listen to music have an effect as to why 70s songs are longer and therefore the guitar solos take up like 2 or 3 minutes of the song?
Yes and no. I think so. I mean, I think it does play into that. It plays into those hands, so to speak, because they're like I said, people had more time on there. They really were able to sit down and enjoy the tracks and enjoy the music from start to finish. And, you didn't buy an album just to be like, oh my God, have you heard this single? We're going to buy the album just for the single. No, you'd buy the album maybe for a specific song, but you would listen to every track, every lyric, every song over and over again because there was no fast forward button. You couldn't just hear 30 seconds. You're like, let's switch to the next song. I mean, you could, but like they didn't do that back then. So I think it gave artists more freedom to create a longer song or to have a longer solo or to even throw a solo in a song for the purpose of having a solo or adding a creative element to the song.
Joseph, anything?
I'm sorry, what were you gonna
I mean, do we listen to music differently over the course of the last few decades than maybe fans of 70s and 70s rock listen to their music? Like the intake aspect of actually enjoying, because you're an album collector. You've talked about that many times. You have a vast collection and you listen to track after track. Obviously.
It's pretty good size. It's a good size. Well, okay. So, most of what I buy nowadays, I mean, even, I'm collecting stuff that I already know. So that always helps. Or if the beauty of now, I guess, technology is I'm able to hear certain bands or particularly new band and I do actually buy a lot of vinyl from new bands that I discover if I really, really like their album, which I'm able to listen to front to back through modern technology.
Never go back to front.
And if I really like it, I think that's something that I want to purchase, to play on vinyl, then I'll do that. I think, it's definitely way different because, I mean, one, we're lucky enough we get to do that. Two, back in the day, but I guess maybe there's some more of an appreciation to answer your question, I guess, from back in the days because you were buying something based off of a live performance that you probably saw, I think, back in the days in the 70s.
No kids are listening to long albums nowadays. They're on TikTok watching the Costco guys and the Rizzler. They're not listening to albums. Exactly.
Riddler? What?
Yeah, they have kids of this generation.
Batman villain?
Get off my lawn. Yeah. So, guys, innovations in guitar playing during the 70s set the decade apart. Some of the innovations I have listed: tapping, Eddie Van Halen; the whammy bar, Richie Blackmore; slide guitar, Dwayne Allman; Southern rock, opera rock, medieval rock. Rock was taking on all these identities, and the guitar was the instrument that led the way. Were there any other innovations that caught your attention, your ear, when you were listening to these songs?
Well, I mean, I think they use more pedals. They use different type of pedals to give them different distorted sounds. I know we talked about Tommy Iommi, who created all these great dark tones with his, and also mixed it up with his typical 60s hard rock, which was fantastic. Pink Floyd and David Gilmour, who I'm sure we're going to talk about extensively, created this amazing bluesy psychedelic sound using new guitar pedals and amps and things of that nature that, I mean, really took that rock music to a different level in my mind, especially guitar. So yeah, I think that played a huge role into the sounds of the 70s being so, I guess you could say, distinct and innovative.
One of the things that I get, and I guess kind of already said it, was that, the 70s rock went to a more heavier guitar tone with the added, use of distortion pedals, something that, was prominent in a lot of the bands and the selections and things that we looked into when we were picking. Fuzz was also widely introduced into 70s hard rock, this fuzz sound.
Explain that.
that you get. No.
Peach fuzz.
You can't explain that. Okay.
It's hard to. I don't know how you. It's like I can play.
Play it for him. Fuck this.
No, like think of like, Hendrix was one of the people that I looked at when we were talking about this, when we first started about it, but a lot of his stuff was the 80s. So 60s, excuse me. So it was, but hey, that's kind of the hallmark there. That's what you're seeing. That it's I don't want to make the noise, but that just those sounds that lingering, like it's a feedback, but it's not feedback. Because mainly more feedback gives off that high pitched sound, and it's kind of like a squealing. This is more of like a just like a. I guess
I got you.
That's the best way I can describe it.
That tickled my ass.
We say our women's listenership just went up about 100.
It's that tone, but with actual notes, and you're hearing the notes as well. So it's not just that sound, but also the amplifiers got larger. There was a lot of what was being used. These are a lot of bands, British bands, these British tube-based amplifiers were being introduced, and so it really just, like I said, the technology was coming around and helping these artists just put out these great sounds, this stuff that we really enjoyed hearing and really and took to and gravitated to, I guess.
That was like Howard Stern, right? Kind of like we won't go into that. This
I love that.
Randall can't sit still anymore, folks.
See? It's working. We're gonna cut all this out, by the way.
Gone down to my toes. Okay, so this may reflect in your selection, but overall, which guitarist from the 70s was the best soloist, pound for pound? Can I make a case? I'll go first. I had Jimmy Page, and spoiler, but none of us had him as our selection. But the sheer volume of kick-ass guitar playing, I should say. He blended in blues, hard rock, even Eastern influences. He popularized the guitar as an orchestra piece. I can't talk. If there's anybody that can make you cry and make you feel just by playing the guitar, it's him. A genius architect that still influences people. Do you guys agree, or who do you guys go for best soloist?
To be honest with you, Jimmy Page is one of my favorite guitarists of all time, and I love that, like you said, that mix, the bluesy, hard rock, middle. He can do a little bit of everything. He created some of the greatest guitar riffs and opening guitar sounds to any song of the 70s. He really did. He's definitely up there. I mean, if you mention him, I would mention him, and I would throw in somebody like David Gilmour in there, who I think is probably extremely underrated, who has created some of the best guitar solos and riffs and sounds and music of Pink Floyd. Jesus Christ, it is the 70s music. It is 70s rock. That bluesy sound and tone that he uses is fucking amazing. So I would say, to be honest with you, it'd be a coin flip for me between those two guys.
Also, like guys that you mentioned, David Gilmour, Joe Walsh.
Joe Walsh was fantastic.
Good to me so
Jimmy
far.
Page. I mean, it's Tommy Iommi. I mean, just Billy Gibbs. I mean, fuck, like
too many to mention, right?
Yeah. So and they're kind of spread out on the spectrum, so versatile and differently from each other.
Last opening question. Are there any modern guitarists who can match the legendary solos of the 70s? Anybody that speaks to you now?
Joseph, you're going to mention Rage Against the Machine.
Well, I mean, he's good.
He's very good. He's very
talking about Tom Morello, by the way.
Tom Morello,
of course, is extremely. I mean, he's talented and on a different level than a lot of people. It's going to sound really stupid. You might laugh, but shit, what's his name? I just blanked. Give me a second.
Is it John Mayer?
John Mayer.
That's who I have. Yeah,
John
bingo.
Mayer.
John Mayer.
John Mayer's his bluesy guitar.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. His guitar play doesn't necessarily match the type of music he's trying to make, but the guitar solos and the way he plays guitar is just it's extremely good. It's extremely impressive.
He's very good.
He's very good.
He's fucking amazing.
I know
dude.
people. I know, like you can write whatever you want to write about him, personal life. Musician wise, that guy is fucking awesome.
Yeah, he's
and
fucking awesome.
He plays the guitar
dude.
badass.
I love Kirk Hammett from Metallica. He's been doing it for over 4 decades, and that kind of slash metal, heavy metal, rock, and he's also added some blues in there too for his solos and his music career. As far as guitarist, amazing. Somebody who's like can do it all in that type of level. Anybody else, Joe?
Well, I think Wes Borland's obviously awesome. It takes his influence a lot from like a guy like Eddie Van Halen with his whole tapping play, like that. I think people would be surprised that just because he is who he is and what he does, in that style of playing. I've seen him play regular shit. He's cool. But one person, and I'll just give this one person a shout out, because there actually is a lot, and there's a lot of technical heavy metal guitar players that I listen to in certain bands that do all kinds of weird shit. And
Better not say The Edge.
No,
I'll say
it. No, I gotta give a shout out to Mark Morton of Lamb of God. Also, there's two guitar players. There's Willie Adler and Mark Morton. But Mark Morton of Lamb of God he is a heavy metal guitar player in a heavy metal band, speed metal, whatever you want, groove metal band, Lamb of God. But he's highly blues influenced, and he brings that to a lot of his solos in the songs that they make. When he does have a particular solo in that song, a lot of it is blues influence. So it's speed. Like, he's obviously playing it fast because it's a solo. They're a heavy metal band, but if you slowed it down, it would be like, it'd be really bluesy. And that's who he is. That's the type of player that he is, and what he grew up listening to.
I had John Mayer on my list too. Just an amazing blues and guitar and rock guitarist. The only thing more amazing than his playing is his dating history. So kudos to him. I also had Jack White. I mean, he can be a minimalist or he could get super creative.
He's fantastic. That's a great pick.
He could switch it up. There was somebody here that I had not heard of. His name is Guthrie Govan, and he plays for a band called the Aristocrats. And I did not know of him, but he was on a lot of lists that I checked out. So I checked out some of his solos, and he's really good. So if you haven't heard of him yet, Guthrie Govan, he's been in the business for a while. Great guitarist. And then lastly, I'll even put Mark Tremonti from Creed and Alter Bridge on here. He crushes riffs and melodic solos. He made us tolerate Scott Stapp. I think he's an amazing guitarist.
You would.
So
you
that
want to see a
good.
No, I was gonna say, y'all want to see a badass like John Mayer solo? Go to YouTube and look for his solo when Frank Ocean was on. I've said this. Frank Ocean was on SNL one year, and he played a song called Pyramids, and John Mayer is actually featured in that song on the live album. He plays the guitar solo, but during this performance, it was actually really cool. Frank Ocean was up there performing this song, and he had a bunch of like arcade cabinets on stage. And he got to a certain point at the end of the song where he just walked up to one of the cabinets and started playing. And John Mayer just busts out this fucking awesome like 2-minute solo. Go look for that. It's just shows it was a Frank Ocean performance, so he was just there to play his part. But like, he gave him that little feature where he just played the song by himself. Great fucking solo.
Truly amazing guitar player. We can't say enough good things about John Mayer and his dating history. So, honorable mentions. Bob, what do you got for us?
I got a few. Okay, so I got a few. So I'm gonna name them. I'll try to be as quick as I can. Can't start off a 70s guitar solo, show without talking about Jimmy Page. A Whole Lot of Love, Stairway to Heaven, and Since I've Been Loving You. Since I've Been Loving You, if y'all don't know that one has an amazing guitar solo. The entire song, just this bluesy, slow down, sexy of a fucking jam from Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. Amazing stuff. ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons, baby. Blue Jean Blues and LaGrange. LaGrange is on a lot of people's list, but Blue Jean Blues, especially one of my favorite songs from them all time. Another similar, slow down, bluesy, amazing shit, dude. Amazing shit. Deep Purple, Highway Star, Richie Blackmore, dude. That fucking jam. I mean, he just goes off in that guitar solo. Some of the amazing stuff. Another Birthplace of Metal. You know what I mean? Him and Iommi kind of like push the boundaries a lot with that type of music. Great solo. You can't mention the 70s and rock without Angus from AC/DC.
Yes.
Whole Lot of Rosie. He has 3 fucking solos in this song, guys, and each one gets better and gets better and gets better. It's just fucking amazing. I know everybody always thinks of like Back in Black and Highway to Hell and dude, a whole lot of Rosie. Those guitar solos in that song are just like amazing shit. Okay. Speaking of Tommy Iommi, Planet Caravan from Black Sabbath. The entire song again. You kind of feeling my preference, my personal preference as far as 70s guitar solos and stuff. Had this like bluesy psychedelic type of feel to it. That little gloom from this Planet Caravan. I know Joseph was one of Joseph's favorite songs. I'm gonna name one, guys, that you probably don't know, but the entire song is a guitar solo, but it's from Funkadelic. It's called it's called Maggot Brain. If y'all don't know who Funkadelic Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton.
Yes.
Their guitarist Eddie Hazel and George Clinton created this song that was just it's off the charts, absolutely fucking amazing and crazy and perfect. Clinton, that's a cool backstory behind it. I'll be really quick about it.
Go ahead.
He told his guitarist, after taking drugs, he was like, I want you to create this song as if you just got told that your mother died. He's like, I want you to picture that day. How would you feel? How would you make sense out of life? How would you take a measure out of everything that's inside of you? How would you? What would it do to you? And this guy Eddie Hazel, who's in this funk, band. If y'all know who Parliament Funkadelic is, you wouldn't think that this song is even a part of this band. And Eddie Hazel, being the guitarist that he is, heavily influenced his idol was Jimi Hendrix. You can tell by his solo. Man, it is just over the top, fucking amazing. If you haven't heard it, you gotta listen to it. If you like any kind of bluesy rock with the hard rock, like 60s, 70s style, you will absolutely love this. So check it out if you can. It's Maggot Brain by Funkadelic. Okay, great shit. And lastly, of course, we gotta mention David Gilmour. Shine On, You Crazy Diamond, my favorite song from him. Echoes, Joseph, that's one of our jams in Pompeii. Guitar solo there. Hey You. Fucking amazing. Time. I can mention, it's just David Gilmour's a man. If anything, after hearing all of what I've heard this week, going through guitar solos and 70s guitars, he may have just like outpointed Jimmy Page by a close margin to me, man. I think he's wonderful.
Joseph, what do you got for us?
Pink Floyd's Time. I think that solo in particular, after because it just sounds so good, and it's like it carries that I'm only going to do this for this one song because I almost selected this song. There's that line in the song where he says no one told you when to run, you miss a starting gun. It's just such a depressing line.
Yes. And
the solo that accompanies it just adds to it. Like it's continues that grief, that grim notion like of life that the song is portraying. That solo afterwards, just like it's just I almost went with that one. Anyway, Eagles, Hotel California, great solo. I also had Stairway to Heaven. How do you not have Stairway to Heaven? Did you pick Stairway to Heaven, Bob? I don't remember. Did you have it?
I said a few from Jimmy Page.
Yeah,
Stairway to Heaven.
Okay, you got to mention that one. I also, yes, Bob was correct. I love Planet Caravan. That's one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs. But also Solitude, a very similar dark, depressing song, or just slowed down song. Solitude has a great solo in it as well. Really great. One of my favorite songs. Layla, Derek and the Dominoes. Yes. That solo at the end, dude.
Well, see, I wanted to mention that one too, but I don't know what steals the show. Is it the piano or is it the opening riff is so iconic?
The piano's great, but that is a good solo. It is, but the song it as a whole is fantastic. Obviously.
Yeah. The song is a fucking. How could you not go with Eric Clapton? A lot of his songs that I love the solos for in Cream, they were all in the 60s, so it kind of I was like looking, and I do love Layla. It's one of my favorite songs all time. The opening riff is just so amazing, and the piano whatever you call it in the
Outro.
middle. Yeah, it's just
that
so
whole thing.
fucking
Well, it's not the
iconic.
middle,
So
right?
it kind of took away from the solo itself. Like if you were to talk about like Crossroads from Cream, like he fucking jams in that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
Oh,
Joe.
that's cool. That's why it's an honorable mention to me. Like I think it's a great, but there's also multiple pieces of that song that make it great. And do you feel like we do, Peter Frampton?
Yeah. Oh my God. How did we not mention him?
Comes alive.
Yeah.
Well, I had a lot. That's why I left. He's on my list. I just didn't want to say because I talked for a while. But yeah.
Yeah. So, and I had a lot that Bob had too. So that's why I was quickly I'm not saying them. So I'm just going with the ones that I do have that I don't think he said. Yeah, man. Do you feel like we do?
You feel like I do.
Great song, great solo. Ran, what do you got?
Layla also kicks off Freedom Rock, so let's not forget that. I had Time by Pink Floyd. We can do a whole show on top 20 Pink Floyd guitar solos by David Gilmour. There are bands who are good and don't get along, don't click, but they're studio bands who create studio magic. Pink Floyd created everything: live, studio, acoustic, so what you name it. They were just, I don't know. I mean, when a band clicks like that and when you have a genius like that, it's just mind blowing. I had Burn by Deep Purple, Richie Blackmore. I also had My Sharona by The Knack. Burton Avery is the guitarist's name. Great drum intro, great bass intro, great vocal intro, great solo. My Sharona might just be a perfect song.
Great. It's a great jam, dude. It is a great jam.
It's a good song, right?
Yeah, but not like they've made it so like commercial and comical nowadays because of like the movies they use it and shit like that. Yeah. But it really takes away from when it first came out. It was a really great song in the 70s.
It's also on Joseph's favorite Taco Bell commercial, My Chalupa. So I had
the funniest commercials.
I had Stranglehold by Ted Nugent. I always thought he sang the song. It was sung by Derek St. Holmes, but he does play the guitar in it. I had Machine Gun by Jimi Hendrix. Remember, most of his hits like Voodoo Child were in the late 60s. And by the way, interesting fact, a reporter once asked Jimi Hendrix, what's it like being the best guitarist in the world? His response was, go ask Roy Clark. You know, and I heard Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck also held the same respect for Roy Clark. Yeah. Roy Clark, for those of you who don't know, he was a country artist, but he was also the host of Hee Haw, which was a country sort of
variety show.
In the 70s. But go watch YouTube clips of him playing guitar. This guy is insane. I mean, shout out to Glenn Campbell too, because he plays along with him on some of these clips. But have you guys seen Roy Clark on the guitar?
Yes,
the guy's amazing. Yes. He looks like our Theo George, right? But he rips it, dude.
Exactly, dude. Yeah, he's an amazing little and then he brings that little like country flair to it too. He's just awesome. He's awesome.
He's amazing. I had Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult. It only took Buck Dharma one take in the recording session, which is funny when you watch the SNL skit with Will Ferrell. Working Man by Rush, Alan Lifeson. I had Killer Queen by Brian May and Queen. Stairway to Heaven. This solo should hang in a museum somewhere. Hotel California, Don Felder and Joe Walsh, just an amazing solo. I had The Sultans of Swing by Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits.
Yes, sir. That's a good one.
And you can pick any song by Boston, but I'm going to go with Something About You. Tom Schultz, people will say Gonna Hitch a Ride is a better solo, but I love this song by Boston, Something About You, but their whole song is just pure guitar rock. It's amazing. They're an amazing band. So we're going to go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry. No, I would say, yeah, great pick. I love Boston.
Boston's an amazing band.
Chicago's better though.
We should do
command you in the name of
25 or 6-4, dude. That solo again is fucking amazing. That's Terry Kath. Fucking amazing stuff. Go ahead.
Excellent. We're gonna go on with our selections now. Bob, what do you got for us?
I kind of went with the popular pick, and I can admit that right now. I think this is probably most people's most obvious choice. I went with Leonard Skinner's Freebird. Probably in my opinion, I don't think they get enough credit for what they did with rock music in the 70s and bringing that Southern flair to it. Freebird and Alan Collins, just rock star, man. Rock star. It's the most iconic and most recognized guitar solo, I think, of the entire decade, to be honest with y'all. Instantly recognizable. It's a guitar solo. As the song builds up to it, it takes the reins and continues to build and build and build. And for a song that starts off so slow and so genuine and so like honest for a song, and builds into this hard rock Southern song with a up tempo and at times, fast pace, really fast paced guitar solo that lasts and lasts and lasts, and it's an over 4 minute guitar solo from the radio album and the radio edit of the song. It's just it's epic in its entirety. You feel like, oh fuck, 4 minutes, that's just way too long for a solo, but it continues and continues. Like, it's a point in the song where you're like, fuck yes, where you crack open a beer, you serve another glass of whiskey, you get up and you bang your head, you drive your car just a little bit faster. It's just that part of the song that just encompasses the entirety of that song. There's a reason why everybody loves Freebird, and it's because of that fucking solo. And there's a reason why everybody knows Freebird. It's because of that fucking solo from Alan Collins, man. I mean, after the song, what's great about it, and I think this is the best point that I can make, it is its own song. Like, the song itself builds up to it, and it takes the reins, and it jumps off, and it goes off. And after 4 minutes, the solo comes to an end, and guess what? The song is over, because what can Van Zandt do after that? Jack and shit, because the song is over. Hey, dude, the party's over, man. You just sold 1 million copies because of that solo. So the fans are all fired the fuck up and ready to party. So it's one of those, man. I love that it ends the song. I love that it takes the song to a brand new heights. It's just an amazing solo. It's Southern rock. Is it as iconic, or iconic's not the word I want to use. Is it as like, oh man, this is so different, like blending a psychedelic and gloom and blues rock all together to make this sound like, Tommy Iommi or somebody like a David Gilmour? No. But is it an iconic sound that represents 70s rock and roll? For goddamn sure it is. Okay, so that's my pick. That's the reason why I chose it, man. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but if you've all seen Forrest Gump and you love when Jenny, you're like, get the fuck off the ledge, Jenny. It's this song that's playing in the background, baby. You're like, goddamn, she's partying way too hard. Let her Skinner tell her to get down. Okay, go ahead, guys.
So the solo starts at the 4:56 mark of the song, and then sometime around the year 1997. So before I get to the solo, I have a few points. Freebird is a 9-minute, 11-second song. These motherfuckers could have made 3 separate songs and thought, nah, we're good. Let's just put everything in one song. Freebird is the Ave Maria for funeral songs for racist people.
Not racist, sir. They're just alien in NASCAR. Let's settle down. Let's get the point right.
So I'll say this. I love the song, and I think it's one of the best intros. Everything in that song, the piano, the church organ. I feel like I'm going to a wedding where there's going to be a shitload of beer and fighting at the reception. Somebody slept with the bride. Someone just found out about an illegitimate child. This song tells so many stories in just those first notes. When I listen to that first part, I just want to get a shoulder tattoo and a hunting license or something. I don't know. I just love it. Okay, my history with the song.
No real guy gets an actual hunting license, Randall. See, you're jumping the ball already, sir.
Okay, my history with this song. I first heard the song as the entrance music for a tag team in the early 80s called the Fabulous Freebirds. Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts. And I was a kid. I was like 6 years old. And when they would come out to this song, they are credited as some of the pioneers of combining rock and roll wrestling. And, even the WWF picked them up for a spin to be managed by Cyndi Lauper, but they were always late to shows. They were true rock and rollers. And they combined rock and wrestling. And when I was a 6-year-old kid, I used to think they sang the song. I was like, oh, they sing their own entrance music. And I heard the intro when they would walk in with their gowns and their fanfare, and I fell in love with this song. And all jokes aside, it's just an amazing piece of music. The emotional and cultural weight that this song carries is massive. It's so impressive. The tradition for Lynyrd Skynyrd concerts is always to play Freebird as the last song of their shows. After the death of lead singer Ronnie Van Zant, performing the song was very emotional for his brother Johnny, and for a while he couldn't sing it, and the band would play it as an instrumental, and the crowd would sing the words as they would show the tribute to the band members who passed away in on that tragic flight. So amazing. Lynyrd Skynyrd just never wanted the song to end. So this song, and it doesn't end. It just fades out. The song never ends. It's going on right now as we speak. This song is a ballad that transforms into a solo at the end, and the solo, it just fades out. I'm partial to the ballad part of the song, but the guitar solo, it's phenomenal. Don't play this while driving through a school zone because this is a have to drive fast guitar solo. So I'm in my, a Ford Expedition or whatever, just driving fast Ford Explorer.
Sorry. That's awesome.
Going through it, trying to tell the kids to get out before the guitar solo. As you mentioned before, this was Jenny Gump's drug song. This solo peaks at the 6:30 mark. Now these guys are showing off. It's just like rock and roll moonshine. But it's more than a solo, Bob. It takes you on a ride. It's a 3-guitar assault. It's not just this roller coaster. It's this amazing frenetic ride that gets crazier and crazier. Finally, at the end, it gives you some relief, but it just keeps on taking you to elevation after elevation.
It's the cocaine's finally kicking in. That's why.
I mean, great structure. It's really its own song. Great pacing. For as long as the solo is, it doesn't get boring. It is a marathon, but it doesn't get boring. I think it's an absolute must-have selection. I enjoy the first half of the song more. And yes, it's 3 guitars, but so what? I mean, just an amazing guitar solo, just an amazing piece of music. Joseph, what are your thoughts?
Well, before you get into it, I know it's 3 guitars, but Alan Collins, the guy that created it, he does all 3 for the track, which is fucking crazy. Like he created all 3 to overlap to put on the song. Just great stuff. Sorry, Joseph, go ahead, buddy.
Not a problem. I'm not gonna lie. I think there was at one point when we were talking about this, doing this topic, I was gonna text you guys and say, like, can we like just say that like Freebird is like fucking great, and we kind of just gotta leave it alone, and nobody should pick it because of the length of the solo.
We probably should have, man.
But no, it's fun to talk about. Yeah, this is a great. Oh man, this song. Almost. It's 2 songs. I like what Bob said. It's the beginning of the original. The normal part of this, the normal part, because it's 2 parts of the song. The first part is the normal song. The second part is the solo. The first part of the song is also very good too. Very great song. Very, very great emotional song. Greatly written, great lyrics. Aside from all that, the solo is very, very iconic. I remember the first time I heard this song, I didn't hear the full version. So I just thought it was a great song on its own with that solo that I heard. I heard it on the radio probably, I think. At some point, or I'm not sure. I didn't know the full 9-minute song existed until later. And then finally hearing that solo, the full thing. I remember hearing that there's that one part of the song about the 6-minute mark of the song, the 6-minute and 30 mark of the song, that little breakdown in the solo where it's like that part.
Yeah.
I was like, and when that part kicked in, when I was hearing it for the first time, the full thing, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is fucking crazy. This is insane. I loved it. I thought I don't think I ever questioned like, when is the song gonna end? I was just enjoying it. It was, but yeah, it's a really long song. It's cool. I didn't think about like what Bob said. I think that kind of in a way, I don't know, maybe that helps. There's no wrong argument for it. Let's just say that. I don't think anybody can give a wrong argument or a bad argument for it. I think it adds to it that it's its own thing. And I think, and I like what Bob said about how when it finally does end the solo, it just kind of kicks off into that little part where the song kind of trails off, because yeah, exactly. What else are you supposed to do after all that? You're supposed to go back into singing. I know we have something similar to that in Light My Fire, where there's that long break where they kind of go into their solos, and the fucking, not the keyboard, but that keyboard solo, and then they go back into the song, and John and Jim Morrison starts singing again. We don't have that here. You can't come back. You can't start singing. You can't go back to the original song after that solo. So I think of course, it adds to it and it makes it great. And this is I'm surprised that, when we looked at like lists, and I was looking at doing my, trying to find my inspiration and trying to find my selection and looking at lists that other publications put together, they didn't put this as number 1. And
it's a top 3 for sure.
Yeah. I've noticed that a lot of lists, it's like in like number 7, number 8.
A lot of the lists I read, like it didn't even have them in the top 5, and I'm like, that's insane. And maybe they're faulting them because it's such a long solo, but I don't think that faults it at all. This is a great selection. This is a great pick, and of course, like Bob said, when you talk about something like this, how do you not mention this song?
Was it Beavis and Butthead that popularized the "Hey, play Freebird, man"? Was it them, or do I have that correct?
I think a lot of people said that. You know what I mean? I think it's popularly saying like at a concert, like, "Hey, play Freebird." Like, I think this is popularly saying in general.
Great selection. You can't go wrong with Leonard Skinner. God rest their souls. So my selection is up next, and I selected for best 70s guitar solo, "Eruption" by Eddie Van Halen. A guitar solo so incredible, it's its own song. So here's why Eruption is so important. It's off of Van Halen's self-titled debut album, and it comes right after Running with the Devil. So once Van Halen knocks you on your ass with a grimy, sweaty rock song, a rock anthem, which only peaked at number 84 on the Billboard Hot 100, by the way. It shows you how jam-packed the talent was in the late 70s rock era. What they do is they immediately follow up on the second track with something that will absolutely blow your mind. You don't throw deep on the first play. You lull the defense and you knock them in the teeth later. And that's exactly what Eruption did. They quickly established Eddie as this new age guitarist, the new breed that is giving you that future sound and is guiding you to what the 80s will sound like until he decided to play the synthesizer, but we won't go into that. The best parts of the song is not the accompanying drums and bass that hand off to Eddie at the start. It's not the innovative double tapping. Eddie is working those fingers like a court stenographer. He's amazing. But no, the best part is that for 1 minute and 43 seconds, we don't have to listen to David Lee Roth. Thank God for that. No, he's actually amazing. I love David Lee Roth.
He's doing kicks in the background, though.
The guitar had been around for a long time. We pretty much went the entire decade before anyone else had people asking, oh shit, there's more you can do with this? The apex of this song is when it goes quiet for about 2 seconds at the 45-second mark. And at 47 seconds, Eddie is completely possessed, and it sounds like the aliens have landed. And for the rest of the song, you hear something that's completely fresh, new and fast, innovative. Eddie Van Halen's work on this song marked a giant leap forward in the progression of the rock guitar. His playing, especially on the instrumental Eruption, upped the game for everyone. Longtime guitar player editor Jas Obrick explained in the book Shredders. The technique of tapping the fingerboard has been around for decades, but it was sparsely practiced and almost always a novelty. Eddie brought finger tapping into the mainstream of rock and roll. And Obrick goes on to say that within 6 months, you had guitar players all around the world trying to emulate that sound. Innovation. Eddie would lament that there was one mistake at the beginning of the song and he wishes he could do it all over. Try to find the mistake because I couldn't find it. Eddie was inspired by a song called Let Me Swim by Cactus. And when you listen to the song, Let Me Swim by Cactus, the first 10 seconds, you immediately hear it. And I was like, okay, this is Eruption because the first 10 seconds sounds like Eruption. Sounds like he completely just took it from him, but then it transitions into a different song. But guys, we tend to talk in hyperbole on this show, but this 1 minute and 43 second mission statement completely changed the face of rock. Oh yes, and just a subtle reminder, this was Eddie's warm-up. This was Eddie fucking around. Nobody praised Michael Jordan during his layup drills. This is Eddie just putting on something that melted everyone's face, and he was just practicing. I love how they pair this song up with Van Halen's cover of You Really Got Me. And if you heard the song on radio stations, like guys, we grew up on Q94.5, they always played Eruption. They followed it up with You Really Got Me, that cover. It's the future meeting the past. It's raw. You know, when disco died, this is the shit that killed it. It still holds up. And lastly, in the 2015 movie Minions, Stewart blasts into this song, thrilling the crowd before smashing his guitar. That legacy will never die. What are your thoughts on Eruption, guys?
From what I can get from the song, a good example of fuzz for you, Randy, is the way the guitar tone sounds as the outro to this. You know that.
Yeah,
I know I'm making that noise again. You know that's a good example. That's
the ladies love it. Yeah.
Feels like at the movie theater.
I was like, I just because I need to hear it and to play it for you to get an understanding. But you know, listen to this song, you'll hear that again. Of course, you listen to it. A lot of what Jack White does uses a lot of fuzz today. Anyway, so originally when you made the selection, I was like, well, it's one song. It's the song. I know it's the song. The thing that's weird about this is it's its own song. I think it could have been the intro to something. I know, like you said, it was paired in front of You Really Got Me a lot. That's not on the album like that, right? They didn't.
I don't believe so. Yeah,
I don't believe so too. It's just something that our radio station would do, right?
Yeah,
it worked out great. To be honest with you, look, how can you go wrong with anything Van Halen? In general, this is, I think, the beginning. This is I don't want to say early Van Halen, but like just the beginning of the genius that is Eddie Van Halen. Great song, of course. The whole thing is a solo. Who can deny anything that Van Halen does? It's its own little thing, and that's kind of it's. I don't know if that takes away from it, but some people might say that. But I did see it on a lot of lists, so of course, it's a guitar solo. It just happens to be the song itself. Eruption. Every time you kept saying eruption in my head, I was like eruption. It's because I watched Secret Life of Walter Mitty too much. Anyway, I don't know if it could have been added to any one of the songs. I think it's perfect on its own because you know what? Who knows what added bass and drums to it? It's a recipe for success for them because there's a lot of great Van Halen songs that have all the elements of their band, the drums, the guitar, and everything, and they still sound good. So I like this that it's a feature for Van Halen on his own, or Eddie Van Halen. What can you say about Van Halen that hasn't been said? The style, the technique, the speed. This is I think we're getting, when did this song come out?
78.
78,
79. This was the Van Halen kind of crosses into that what we said earlier in the episode, these 70s musicians, these 70s guitar players were taking advantage of the technology available to them. We're getting closer towards the 80s when this comes out, and of course a lot of the things and the sounds of 80s heavy metal or hard rock and guitar solos were going to change, and I think that's based off of Van Halen, off of what he was doing. So to add to that, because I know Bob's probably going to say something about the 80s, what's the term that I'm looking for?
Pass it on.
Yield my time to Bob. But this is a great selection. Part of me wishes that it was part of a song, but at the same time, it's cool as it is. It really is.
Yeah,
you can't take anything away from it.
I definitely like how they used it as like the precursor, before You Really Got Me on the radio stations. I think that's fantastic. I think they blend right into each other really, really well. This is, I think, what Joseph's referring to as far as me mentioning like the 80s. Eddie Van Halen, I think his music has always reminded me of the 80s decade. I think he's the greatest guitarist of the 80s. But what's fantastic about this solo that came out in 78, 79, it was the like jumping off point, you could say, for 80s rock and roll music. I think everybody heard what Eddie Van Halen was doing and being like, holy fuck, that's the sound I want to make. And I think you had a bunch of, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that are trying to create rock music at that point in time. They're like, they want something different from what they've been hearing in the 60s and 70s that are like, yes, that's the music I want to create. And then it created all these 80s hair metal, rock bands that we see in the 80s. I mean, it's a very distinct and popular sound. Eddie Van Halen has a very distinct sound to his guitar, but it's very 80s sounding. The 80s decade, it fits that mold so well. So I think that he was the jumping off point. I think he was the catalyst. I think he was the person, the guitarist that everybody emulated in the 80s to create that great 80s rock sound of music. So this is a great solo. Fantastic. Like Joseph said, I wish it was a part of a song, you know what I mean? Because it's the entirety of a song. But I don't think that'll take too much away from it. He's innovative. He's amazing. Like you said, the creation of sound and everything that he does with this solo are pretty amazing, man. I love that. The only thing I will say, again, jumping point for the 80s, it definitely has an 80s feel for me. And that's the only knock I could say against it. But Eddie Van Halen, dude, he's the greatest, if not one of the greatest of all time.
I did look it up real quick. So Eruption is track 2 off of the album. You Really Got Me is the one that follows it. So it was really cool that our local radio stations would play the two. I can look. It's a great opening. It's a great opening for the song, but I can understand why now it's not, because obviously they didn't write You Really Got Me. They do a great cover of it. They do an awesome cover of it. Adding Eruption, the solo to it, I think would take away from it. If it was, it could have been in another song. Of course, you had Running with the Devil before it, a great song as well. That's a pretty good 1, 2, 3, 4. It was Running with the Devil, Eruption, You Really Got Me, and Ain't Talking About Love. So
yeah, one of the greatest songs of the 70s, late 70s, man.
Those are 3 really good songs. Well, again, one was not written by them. To kind of find a place for this solo in those first 3 songs, but Jamie's Crying was on there as well. But yeah, I can see it. I'll give it a little bit more credit as its own thing, because the next song that it led into was You Really Got Me, and what you can't really add to it. I mean, they do have there is some solo in that, but
it's
not really their song.
He makes the guitar laugh, and you really got me.
Yeah.
Who the hell else could do that?
Peter Frampton makes it talk. Hello, you feel like I do.
I will say this. It's funny that you guys talked a lot about Eddie Van Halen in the 80s. His most famous.
I hear the jump off though.
Yeah, it is a jump off, and he inspired so many people. And the thing is, his most famous solo wasn't even from Van Halen. It's from an album that's celebrating its 42-year anniversary. Beat It, Michael Jackson, Thriller, the Thriller album. His most famous solo is off Beat It, where he's not in the video. He was kind of incognito, and back in the 80s, you were able to sort of shroud that stuff in secrecy, and it later came to light. But that's his famous solo and his most famous solo. But I will say Eruption is like, okay, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to be the rest of my life. And it just knocks the shit out of everything that comes afterwards. I think it's just amazing.
Yeah.
We'll go on to conclude with our final selection for best guitar solo of the 70s. Joseph, what do you got for us?
My selection is David Gilmour's ending solo in Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. Coming in just past the 5-minute mark and continuing for just about the last 2 minutes of the song. True, technically, there are 2 solos in this song, and I wasn't specific. I just realized when I mentioned my pick, so I hope you all, like everybody, are assuming that I went with the ending.
The second one. I thought you went with the second one. There's 2 great solos in here.
I forgot about that. Yeah. I was like, holy shit, I didn't tell them which part of the song. I was assuming you all knew.
Yes, the fade out.
I was acting like he didn't know, and now he's angry at me.
I'm angry, very angry. Joseph, you could have gotten wrong with anyone. It's David fucking Gilmour, Joseph.
So yeah, the last part of the song, I think that's what everybody considers the best and most memorable solo of the song. This is a quote directly from ultimateguitar.com. I have no problem using this in agreement with it because I do believe it's perfect. When it comes to being simple and straight to the point, providing more with using less, there is no one better than David Gilmour. I know that sounds like that's a knock on his skills. That's not a knock at his skills at all. It just shows you how little he has to do to sound so fucking amazing. For this song in particular, there is nothing better than keeping it in simple terms for this solo. We all know, like I said, we all know David Gilmour can jam, and he could have done way more than that, but he didn't need to. If you didn't know anything about this song, which you should, it's about a state of delirium and feeling of being detached from reality, according to Roger Waters. But I think we all we all know that, probably back in the days and probably still to this days, people like to enjoy this album and particularly this song while being like in a meditated state or a medicated state, however you want to say. If you're already on this wave of this song, the solo sort of carries you. It's this great, unknown feeling for the end of the song. And I do love that it plays out the song. So kind of like where Bob's selection does kind of the same. The solo ends and it kicks kind of back into the beginning of that solo part, but then the song does carry out. This one just takes you all the way out into the next song, and I really like that, and I really think it works perfectly, and it's a great piece of it. One of my favorite parts in this particular is the 6-minute mark of the song. I wish like I could explain the parts to that part in particular to you while we were listening to it, but I think he like added the sauce, so to speak. Like it's one of my favorite parts. It's at the 6-minute mark of the song. It's simple. It's perfect. It's bluesy. It's not heavy. But it doesn't need to be. That's not the song. It just works perfectly, and it's like I mentioned, it just like carries you throughout the song. It carries you out, and it gives you like, honestly, when I made this selection, I was listening to songs, I was trying to pick something to you, and I was laying here in my room, and I have these lights that do like these, you all can see them, there's stuff going on behind me.
Very
I was listening to, I thought it was a lava lamp.
I was listening to this song, and it just made me like feel good. It's a feeling. I think this solo is a feeling, and I think that's what really helps it. And of course we talked about David Gilmour earlier in this episode, and we could talk about him at length. This guy is one of the greatest guitar players of all time, probably of the 70s. I mean, I don't know how you don't mention this guy, and particularly this song, one of my favorite songs, and this ending solo. I think it's just beautiful, and it just adds to Pink Floyd as a whole. Guys?
One of the things I love about doing this show is learning. And we've done best 70s rock song, we've done best Pink Floyd song, and now we're doing best 70s guitar solo. And just the preponderance of influence that Dave Gilmour just gave to the entire decade. I mean, I think this episode has made me like, this guy's the best guitarist that ever lived. Quite possibly just because of what he did. It's not so much the effort and the tricks he does with the guitar. It's just the emotion that he evokes from something simple, and it's so effortless. And Joseph, I think you could have used any Pink Floyd song, and I think we would have been okay. I think, and this song,
there's a lot.
There's a lot
to choose from.
There's a lot. I think this song came out in 1979, so it was like the tail end of the 70s. Yeah. It still sounds heavy early 70s rock. Unlike the Van Halen song we talked about, this one sounds undeniably 70s, which is weird because it came out a year after. Pink Floyd has this draw to their music. Like, you have to be involved within their songs. They give you this delicious meal for your mind and ears, and every time Dave Gilmour solos, you think, oh shit, there's more? That's extra? I've never done hard drugs, or I will never understand why people did them. But listening to Pink Floyd, I understand why they did it while listening to this music, right? Because it just goes well to get that. It's not an endorsement for it, but it's an understanding of why. Listen to me I'm praising. I'm sorry. Listen to me praising people who tore up families in their own lives, thinking that they only took drugs to get deeper into a song. I mean, I'm not advocating that. So, "Comfortably Numb" is my favorite Pink Floyd song. So, Joseph, you had me at hello. I want to get lost in a dark forest. It's just an amazing adventure. This song is just an adventure. That line, "just the basic facts, can you show me where it hurts?" That's what my doctor asked. So already I have a built-in trust with this band. I still have no idea what the song is about, but I did watch Wicked with my family, and I wish they just played Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon over it. Popular is a pretty good song, though. No hate on that. So this ended up being the last song Waters and Gilmour wrote together. In 1985, Waters left the band and was shocked that they kept it going without him. Well, of course they were, you jerk. I mean, these guys have families to feed. There's 2 guitar solos in this song, and I know you're referencing the end part, and that's where David Gilmour just floats you away.
Yeah.
Gilmour told Guitar World that this solo didn't take very long to develop. Quote, "I just went out into the studio and banged out 5 or 6 solos. From there, I just followed my usual procedure, which is to listen back to each solo and mark out bar lines saying which bits are good." That's what he said. I love how these pieces of rock culture just come easy for these guys. I mean, that's just genius work. At work, I learned how to use a new shortcut on Microsoft Excel, and that's my highlight of the day. And these guys are creating freaking art. These guys go into work, they create something that lives forever, and that's just another day in the office for these guys. The solo is just so beautiful. I think Gilmour's solo on Time is more powerful and poignant, but this solo is art as well. This is soul and emotion, and when it ends, I feel like something has left me. I can't explain it. I cannot put my finger on it. There is a live version of this on YouTube. Please, I encourage anybody, search Pink Floyd "Comfortably Numb" post solo.
We've watched it.
Yes, the post solo, it will blow your mind. It's not the best quality of video, but he is incredible in this post solo YouTube clip. And do yourself a favor and drown in it for a few minutes. Gilmour pushes the magic to 100. Gilmour talks about how powerful the experience was. David Gilmour, my second favorite Gilmour behind Lorelei. Bob, what do you got for us?
There's a lot of innuendos about prostate exams, and there is no pain you are receiving. Is that what the doctor told you?
I can't put my finger on it. Yeah.
Yeah. David Gilmour, the king of subtlety and psychedelic bluesy rock that's just so simple and so subtle. It's just amazing. And to follow up that with the lyrics that they sing about that are so moving and touching, talking about everything from politics to life to getting old to love, and to follow it up with these amazing guitar solos that continue to pull at your thoughts or at your heartstrings, and to make you think and to make you feel, and it's extremely hard to do, you know what I mean, to evoke some kind of emotion in a listener through music, especially through a guitar solo, when it's not one of holy shit, let's party, like you get from Eruption and from Freebird. You get this longing feeling, this heartfelt feeling when you listen to Comfortably Numb after like going through the lyrics and going through the opening of the song, and then you finally get to this last solo that finishes it up, and man, it just totally like encompasses everything about the song, and it's what David Gilmour does. And like Rand said, if you haven't listened to any of his solo performances as he got older too, I mean, shit, dude, look at his solo concerts where he's playing these amazing guitar solos, and it seems so easy and so effortless to him, but they like hit on every note and every emotion, man. It's just fucking amazing, and I think that's what makes him so. It makes him maybe a standalone, maybe makes him the greatest guitarist of the 70s because of what he's able to do and how he's able to make you feel and how he's able to make the song change and transform and, you know, come full circle just by playing his notes in a certain way, his guitar in a certain way. So fantastic choice, man. I love Comfortably Numb. I love Time. I love Shine On, You Crazy Diamond. You like Rand said, you could have picked any one of their solos from any one of their songs, and I would have been on board with it as well because they're just so great, dude. So yeah, I mean, David Gilmour, we can't say enough about you, man. Great stuff.
I want to share something with you guys. I teach late at night, and it was a beautiful night. I was parked on the other side of campus, and I'm walking out, and I put on my headphones, and I put on the Turning Away, different Pink Floyd song. But man, I was like, whoa, like, I mean, I could feel like the emotions like overtaking me. It was just an amazing experience just to listen to a simple song that you've probably heard, 1,000 times. But then at a moment you recognize where you are in life. You look around, you see it's a beautiful night. I'm at a beautiful place, and I'm walking, and I put something on that my ears just perked up to. And it was just a great little moment. And not a lot of bands could do that, but Pink Floyd is one of those bands. Good Charlotte can't do that.
I just like I don't know, that's kind of why I remember what did we do, our best our top 10 rock bands. I don't remember where Pink Floyd fell on each of our lists, but
it was like 3 for me or something like that, 3 or 4.
I think they're in our top 5.
Yeah, definitely we're in our top 5.
I think the knock on Pink Floyd is that music popularity is a young person's vested interest. And Pink Floyd is just a band you have to be mature to really understand. And yeah, there's a lot of young, mature people that get them. But a lot of people listen to Pink Floyd because the solos are great and they were doing these mind-altering substances. But I think Pink Floyd, the only knock, and this is really not a knock, I think you really, truly start to understand them when you start to really experience life because their songs are about life.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And that was without any altering substances. No. So, guys, I know we're running a little long, but final thoughts on a 70s guitar solo.
It deserves its credit and its time in history because obviously, like I've said before, it influenced a lot of next decades of music of people that we listen to, and I appreciate. And I think just what I'm starting to believe, Bob. Probably one of, if not the best decades of rock music, and I think it's because its influence on the nonstop influence on the following decades.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's the fuzz sound. Yes. Okay, Bob. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I agree, man. I love talking 70s rock, especially 70s guitarists, 70s rock music. It's just such a great decade of music, and you can definitely see the influence it had on all the continuing decades after that. So it's a great topic, man. Great. I can't wait till we talk about 80s guitars and 2000s and
be very interesting.
And move on. That'll be fun stuff to talk about.
I think when we go into the 80s, well, obviously there's there was some.
Can't use Eddie Van Halen, okay? No,
no, there was some songs. There was a song that I had thought about, but I was like, oh no, that's the 80s. I can't believe I was thinking that's the 60s. Excuse me, the 70s. It's going to be fun to talk about the difference between like good 80s rock guitar solos and those that were just part of like a hair metal band song. They were just like, oh, it's my solo, but like, what is it really adding to the song? Like, it's not.
She's
like,
only 17.
I think just to add to like the mystique of 70s rock, these solos added and gave songs feel. I don't see a lot of that in the 80s, but they're there, and it'll be fun to go back and hear those. So that's going to be an interesting one when we do that eventually.
Final thoughts. It was the decade that created the Guitar Hero. Innovation, creativity, technology helped so much. It really is amazing to know that these songs are around 50 years old and they sound so good,
right?
still timeless. I mean, they defined the identity of rock music at the time, that freedom, rebellion, that pushing identities.
Freedom, man.
There was a lot of drugs. There was a drug culture and alcohol floating around at this time, but the free nature of it allowed the culture not to be shackled down. People still compare modern live performances to the performances of this era. You know, I used to bash our local radio station for playing 16 hours of 70s rock a day. Still too much, but I understand what the era meant to them and what it started to mean to us. It's just too much fucking Steve Miller Band and his off-key singing. I could have done without that. But love this. It's a great song. Love this era. This was the standard, and when we do other solo decades, this is going to be a difficult one to top. So Bob and Joseph, just a great conversation about this era. And that's our show, everyone. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up and let us know what you think the best 70s guitar solo is. Most importantly, let us know what you think about the show. You may reach us at formidableopponents@gmail.com and follow us on all forms of social media by searching for Formidable Opponents. We want to thank Creative Little Pill for her great artwork. Please follow her on Instagram at Creative Little Pill. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on any podcast platform you're listening to us on. And join us next episode as we'll be discussing and debating sexiest song of the 2000s. So for Bob and Joseph, thank y'all so much. Thank y'all for the tremendous November that we had. We thank you, our listener, and we'll see y'all next time.